Hello. Hi. Hello. I decided to do this live because straight up, it can take way more time to edit these things than it can take just to get this, like, live done. So, I'm kind of actually feeling lazy. This is me being lazy, still showing up. Like, I've got, hey girl, what's up, Sarah? I was just about to be authentic again. I have, like, little acne patches everywhere on my forehead, but thank God for filters. These fucking hormones, I swear. Anyway. So, pull up, it's story time. This one's actually really good. I've put it on my podcast in the past. Sort of. And my podcast is very much involved with this story, but I haven't talked about it in a nutshell, in a reel. So, hopefully, whoever sees this later in post, actually sits through this one, because I think this is one of my most interesting life experience stories. It tells you why I'm doing what I'm doing. It tells you how long I've been on this journey. And it will help you understand the type of person you get in a reading. You just found out that I had one. Oh my God, girl. I've been doing podcasts for like 4 years. But the first one was called, oh my God. It had to do with skin. I can't remember the name of my first podcast with Megan. My best friend and I did a podcast together. And then I have Spirituality with Muscle. And Spirituality with Muscle I've had for almost 3 years now. I'm about to start my 3rd season. And my 3rd season, I want to have a lot more interviews. Like, interactions with other people. So, I'm organizing that. So that's why I haven't done any new episodes. So I'm wanting to do more collabs because I find it extremely fun. That's kind of how I got started on podcasting. I'm totally diverging from the subject, but I got started on podcasting because people started inviting me to do podcasts with them, and I was doing co-starring episodes with other people. And I was like, damn, you know what? This is kind of fun. I think I want it my own. So that's how that started. But anyway, this goes back to, I was homeschooled largely throughout my childhood, all throughout elementary, throughout the entirety of high school as well. So 12 years of education, 8 years of that was homeschooling. So I don't have a lot of formal education. All of the stuff that you see is a lot of self-taught nonsense from a highly autistic, neurodivergent, ADHD, self-driven, very curious, double Gemini Aries bitch. My brain doesn't stop. That's part of how I've gotten in trouble with alcohol and drugs in my youth. Every time I start talking, I start to feel like I have, like, hairs on my face. Like cat hair. I have a house full of cats. Anyway. So, that's another thing. I have some 12th house shit. So, of course, I'm a 12th houser. Of course I have addiction issues. But we're not talking about that. So, but it is 12th house involving, because I don't believe that you don't just get this kind of prophecy without having some type of interactions with your water houses. I'm getting really passionate, so if I get pitchy with my voice, I'm sorry. So, as a child being homeschooled, my mom used to find these weird little niche places to take me. Just for the day, like miniature field trips. And I wound up going to this house multiple times, as a homeschooler, and then later with the school that I went to in 4th grade. So 3rd and 4th. Was it 3rd? Anyway, doesn't matter. The story has a lot of interweaving, so I'm trying to get it all together. But this woman, again, I don't remember her specific name, but I could access that name quite easily. In fact, you know what? I'm thinking about inviting the girl that I'm about to be talking about, if she's available. Let's see. That's fucking weird. Anyway. Strange. So, turns out that this person I'm about to be talking about, this is very much our lives intersected before she was even born. So, this is why I'm like bouncing back and forth. So, when I was around 5 years old, between five is the first time I went there, and I continually went there until I was, for the next 5 years, off and on. You know, so between 5 and 10 years old, I visited this house quite a bit. This woman had a huge museum in her home, and she had like, it wasn't just a home, it was like a ranch style home, but then she had houses in the back. She had kind of like a mine or whatever, like it was like a hole in the ground in the back with like a house on top of it, just like a gold mine. And she had like a big giant locomotive caboose, like a train caboose in her yard. And, you know, and it just like, she had all these historical things attached to it. I think Abraham Lincoln either rode on that caboose or his body was transported on it or something. You know, there was like really cool items in this house. Like everything was cool. There was taxidermy bears. There was, artifacts, there was pop art, there was old cans of Pepsi. Just literally this woman, she was like the most organized. And I said this on my podcast, and my friend who this winds up circling back to, she laughed when I said that she was what I remember, like what I would classify as like an organized hoarder, because I don't know what other kind of brain could collect this type of thing to this type of volume. But kids and like classes would all go through her house and just take tours just for educational purposes. It was basically a house museum, right? And everything was properly labeled. It was properly organized. And this woman had like she was probably autistic or something. Like she just everything was categorized, but she had saved such random shit. And the way her house was laid out, it felt so historical and felt like so energetically busy. Just trying to set the scene. My first trip there was when I was 5. And we got into one of the rooms, and she had a room that was completely full of porcelain dolls from top to bottom, all over the walls, all over the shelves, windowsills, chairs, covered in porcelain dolls, little faces everywhere. And I told my mom that I had been there before. I like tugged on her sleeve and told her, like, the last time I was here, this and this happened. And she looked at me very alarmed and she said, "This is your first time here." Now, I've always gotten messages in my dreams. Always. Always. So I told her that I had been there before in a dream at that point. Now, I remember my first memory of that place, and I remember my second memory of that place, and they were both the same room. So I was destined to be there, and to this day, I still have, I still dream about places and then eventually travel there. And I'll get like this sense of deja vu, but it's not called deja vu, it's called something else. I don't remember what it's called, but it has a name in French. It's just one of the things I do as a psychic. So my energy already knows where it's supposed to go. So I was talking about this on my podcast, this experience of my first psychic experience where my mom was like, "You've never physically been here before." It was, and I told her, and we figured it out that it had been a dream that was my first visit there. So I thought that event alone was standing out by itself. But then I made a podcast about it. And I had been in physical therapy for about 2.5 years at this point. I was almost done with physical therapy because I wound up being there for 3 years. My physician for physical therapy, she and I got close. And we're still friends to this day. That's who I invited on this, live, hoping she'd have time. But if not, that's okay. I'll tag her later. Her name's Ashley Engel. We wound up being really good friends, and she was listening to my podcast, and she goes, "Katie, tell me more about your experience." Okay, so, and I was just verifying things, just telling her more about the experience. And her grandmother always told this story about dolls, and like a boy stealing one of these dolls and burying it, and somehow it was found out that this boy lied about burying the doll. This is to my recollection. And the grandma, the old woman that owned the house, her story always ended with that fact, Numbers 32:23. Be sure your sins will find you out. She was always drilling this. She told this story every single time I went to the house. Every single time. So when my friend, physical therapist started being like quizzing me about this woman in this house because she heard it on my podcast, I told her that story about Numbers 32:23. Be sure your sins will find you out. And she squealed. She goes, "Katie, that's my grandmother." Now, I was born in 1985. Between the times of 5 years old to 10 years old, my friend was born in 1994. I started going to this house. It had to be 1990. And the last time I had to be there was in 1995. So this girl who wound up being my physician down the road, I was visiting her grandmother's house psychically and in person before she was even born. And then later on down the road, the universe saw to it that our lives intersected to the point that we became friends to this day. So we have been psychically intertwined from the beginning, all over a room full of porcelain dolls. I love this story. Now, I've had other psychic experiences before I was even out of diapers. But I wouldn't say that they're quite to this degree. It was more of a telepathic awareness at that point. I was, my coworker just popped out. I was like, oh. When I was 2 years old, I was helping my mom wash dishes. I think. I was in diapers. But she had been trying to teach me my letters, and I was adept at reading from the beginning. So I already knew my ABCs. I had just learned them. I had just memorized them, like just that day. And I was excited to tell her about my ABCs. So I was like, "Hey, Mom, I have something to show you." And I started like trying to tell her my ABCs. And I thought I was thinking at her, and I was looking her in the eyes, but evidently my lips weren't moving. And she tried to tell me, like, "I can't hear you. What do you, like, you're not, why are you just staring at me?" And I said, "I'm telling you my ABCs." And she goes, "Well, I can't hear you. You have to use your words." So I was trying to psychically, telepathically communicate before I was out of diapers. And by the time I was 5 years old, I was having prophetic dreams about locations that wound up being a huge theme in my life all the way down to this very day. I'm about to be 39 on Tuesday. I have not had a night's sleep where I didn't dream unless I was on some type of heavy duty, like cannabis or, some other kind of influence where I was trying to fall out that deep. Because like I said in the beginning, I'm a 12th houser. I've struggled with substance abuse issues. So, it's partly because there's times when I didn't want these psychic gifts and I wanted to disconnect that connection, and I didn't want to know the things I knew because it's a responsibility. I've been there. I've been running. I've ran away before, and I know it doesn't fucking work. So that's my story for the day. I thought it would be enlightening to share at the very least. I could sit here and talk even more about it, but I got to get into work. Got to start working out, and then I clean this fucking gym. So you'll see me mopping and vacuuming here soon. But that's the kind of person I am. I can't shut this off, whether or not I'm in a session or not. I've just learned that when I'm in a session, God gives me more information than when I'm not in a session. So I started charging for that reason, on top of the fact that so many people were coming to me at a time, and I didn't have time to talk to everybody and help every single body anymore. It has to be with proper energy exchange. So my gifts are for everybody, not for me. I can't do self predictions. I've been of service at birth. A reminder, I'm here doing my thing every single day. Every single fucking day. God will speak to you if you allow it, regardless of your consciousness level. But the messages will come, I promise. Anyway, happy Saturday. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. I see you, Sarah. Or I'm pretty sure you're the one that's still left. All right. Yep, you're still here. I appreciate your energy. Have a beautiful, I'm assuming, evening.